You gotta go and get to win and not conquer. I had to go out and get it without a sponsor. Kept it real, never crooked, yeah, that's honor. Now I can go out and get it how I want to. Hashtag bless, I choose.
What is up, Rumble? Welcome back to the Ryan Matta Show. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday. Today is Thursday, April 11th, and we got a lot to talk about because it seems like every country right now is in a flight to Bitcoin. The game theory, they call it, where all of your competition is doing it and you're not doing it, and your competition starts to win. It forces you to do it. So it's just going to be like I don't know what it's going to be like, but I think it's going to be like people leaving the Titanic after it hits the iceberg. I like that analogy that our country is the Titanic, and we've hit the iceberg and there's no turning back at this point. So are you going to make it onto a lifeboat, or are you going to watch your government completely loot and steal everything from you? I want to kick things off with a video I just recorded this morning, actually talking about Gen Z. And I just was sitting in my car getting ready to walk into the gym this morning, and I had a little thought, and I wanted to share it to you. And I say Gen Z will expose the 401k pyramid Ponzi scheme. Hashtag Bitcoin. Let me know what you guys think. So I was just thinking to myself, how long do you think it is before Gen Z wakes up and realizes, like, I can't even keep my fucking head above water right now. I'm having to choose between paying my taxes and paying my rent. So I'm going to go work a job. I'm going to work 40 hours a week, whether it's minimum wage or you're making a little bit above minimum wage, you're barely getting by. And then you have to think somebody else could try to convince you that after you work that 40 hours, you should go get a second job. So that way you can put money into a 401k account, which if you take a look at what's happening to people's 401ks all across this country, they are getting absolutely obliterated. The amount of people in the last 12 months that have messaged me and told me, I had to take money out of my 401k just to kind of get my head above water. So right, while Gen Z is trying to keep their head above water, and we know that the entire stock market is all based on a bunch of fiat little slaves putting a 4% or 6% or 8% of their paycheck every month and then getting matched by their employer into this 401k Ponzi scheme to keep it going. Well, what I see is an entire nation of Gen Z and millennials waking up and going, wow, everything our government told us was a fucking lie. So what happens when you go from literally almost 100% of the nation putting 4% of their paycheck every month into a system that's a complete pyramid Ponzi scheme to putting none, to not just putting none, a vast majority of Americans who are probably under 40 are going to start pulling out, cashing out their 401ks. Why wouldn't you? Why would you not pay a 25% fine to put your wealth into an asset that you own, that you can take full custody of, that no government can ever hyperinflate or print away into oblivion or create dark shares or dark pools and sell shares that they don't own into dark pools and then borrow against those collateralized assets and take loans out of it to do share buybacks so that they can pump the price? Think about this. Think about yourself trying to convince Gen Z that they should be putting 4% of their wealth into a 401k versus into Bitcoin. And then take a look at Bud Light. How long do you think it's going to be before Gen Z Bud Light's the Federal Reserve? That's what I think's happening. I think their days are done, bro. Fucking done. I don't want my children to grow up in a slave environment like I grew up because my parents created this. Our parents did this and we allow it to continue to happen. And I'm not passing that shit on to my children. My son's stacking Bitcoin and he's 11. What are you doing, folks? What are you doing, folks, is the great question of our generation. What are you doing with your money? Are you putting it into a system that's designed to steal from you? Or are you going to protect that wealth and take custody of your own assets for the first time in your life? I guess time will tell, but check out what other countries are doing. This is crazy. So Bitcoin Archives tweets out, he says, Justin, South Korea's pro-Bitcoin Democratic Party has won the national election to form government. We're going to allow ETFs, domestic or overseas. More than 6 million South Koreans, over 10% of the population, own Bitcoin or crypto. Let that sink in. Let's jump over here to this next article, which is Costa Rica. This is over on Bitcoin News. If you guys are not following Bitcoin News, you guys can swing over there and follow them on Twitter. If you guys are watching on Twitter, I believe I tagged them when this video went live. So swing over there and show them some love. They're putting out great educational content and dropping the best news, I think, in the industry right now. So Costa Rica explores regulations amid growing Bitcoin adoption. Costa Rica finds itself at a crossroads as it contemplates proposed legislation that could potentially limit its citizens' ability to use Bitcoin for everyday transactions. The story of Costa Rica Bitcoin regulations, shared by renowned Bitcoin technology firm Jan3 on social media platform X, underscores the ongoing debate surrounding the legal framework governing digital asset ownership, trading, and investment within the Latin American nations. And he goes on, he says, like most countries, Costa Rica lacks proper legislation concerning the ownership and trading of Bitcoin and other digital assets. However, recently the nation has resumed debates around a potential crypto asset law that could compromise the ability to freely use Bitcoin as money for day-to-day transactions. So that's when you know you live in a tyrannical government and that your government absolutely hates you. So Costa Rica, good luck, but most likely will lead to revolution, just like it's going to lead to revolution in every country that tries to oppose it. Speaking of which, how about Hong Kong, right? Jump over here to this next article on Bitcoin News. It says China's southern funds apply for Bitcoin ETF in Hong Kong. Hong Kong nears launch of its first Bitcoin ETF as China Bitcoin attitude shifts, solidifies its role in the global markets, folks. Hong Kong is on the brink of a groundbreaking development in the world of Bitcoin as a major Chinese asset manager makes significant strides towards launching the region's first spot Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, ETFs. The move reflects the notable shift in China's Bitcoin attitude and underscores Hong Kong's emergence as a key player in the global Bitcoin market. This is huge, folks. They got a lot of money over there. Chinese asset manager enters the fray in a series of strategic maneuvers. Leading Chinese asset managers have utilized their Hong Kong subsidiaries to spearhead the application process for Bitcoin ETFs. Harvest Fund, the Southern Fund, boasting substantial assets under management, have filed applications for spot Bitcoin ETF, signaling their intent to tap into the bourgeois interest in the digital asset. A source at Harvest Fund Management said, "We are now positioning in the Bitcoin business too." Bingo, folks. This is huge. Regulatory progress and market outlook. The regulatory landscape surrounding Bitcoin ETFs in Hong Kong has been evolving rapidly, with industry insiders speculating that approvals for these innovative investment products could come as early as the second quarter of this year. The anticipated development reflects the growing confidence among investors in Bitcoin investment potential and highlights the collaborative efforts between funds, companies, and regulatory authorities. Industry insiders highlight the emergence of financial leaders to meet surrounding investor demand for Bitcoin access, suggesting that the debut of Hong Kong's inaugural Bitcoin ETF might happen very soon. Now, could be huge, folks. Now, how about China Bitcoin ban in Hong Kong strategic positioning? Despite China's previous crackdown in Bitcoin trading and mining, Hong Kong has adopted a more open approach towards the digital asset, attracting the attention of major Chinese funds. By leveraging their Hong Kong subsidiaries, these funds can gain exposure to Bitcoin in a compliant manner, capitalizing on region's favorable regulatory environment. China prohibits Bitcoin and tightly regulates capital flows across borders. Nonetheless, the industry thrives in a legal gray zone. People trade Bitcoin and other tokens on exchanges like Binance and OKX per Reuters. Now, the impending launch of a Bitcoin ETF in Hong Kong holds significant implications for the broader digital asset market. It not only provides investors with regulatory avenues to gain exposure to Bitcoin, but also signifies a pivotal moment in Bitcoin's journey towards mainstream acceptance. Analysts are hopeful about Bitcoin ETFs in Hong Kong, following the position performance of Western counterparts approved by the SEC on January 11th. Bingo, folks. Conclusion: as Hong Kong prepares to usher in its first Bitcoin ETF, the region cements its position as a front runner in the global Bitcoin market. The collaborative efforts of major Chinese asset managers and regulatory authorities underscore the growing institutional interest in Bitcoin and reflect a broader shift towards embracing digital assets in traditional finance. With regulatory approval expected in the coming months, all eyes are on Hong Kong as it gears up to make history with the launch of its pioneering Bitcoin ETF, paving the way for a new era of investment opportunities in the digital economy. Bingo, folks. Bingo. How long before every single person in the United States is like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Let's take a trip down memory lane. I don't know if you guys have read the book, The Creature from Jekyll's Isle. If you guys have not read this, let me just play a few key parts and take a little trip down memory lane, what our founding fathers were thinking, right? Specifically George Washington. And it's crazy that, this stuff wasn't stuff that we were really taught in school. Never were taught in school. Why would they, right? So this part, right? George Washington warning to Americans about what would happen to the nation if we ever gave the government the ability to create a paper currency. Now, all of these big politicians are pro-constitutionists. They're conservatives, right? What have they conserved? We have lost every aspect of what it means to be American in this country. So how many of these quote-unquote conservatives are championing completely ending the Fed? Because this was probably one of the most monumental things that our founding fathers were so adamant about. I mean, absolutely hell-bent on never giving our government the ability to print or control the currency of our nation, right? You had the Coinage Act, which I want to talk about that as well. But let's play this clip and I'll get into it.
Free coinage.
Free coinage.
Perhaps the most important provision of this act, however, was the establishment of what is called free coinage. Under free coinage, any citizen may take raw silver or gold to the mint and, for a nominal fee, have it converted into coins for personal use. The government merely performs a technical function of creating the coin and stamping it with its insignia to certify the correct weight and purity. Free coinage was to become an important part of the American success story, and it lasted until the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, which not only terminated it, but even made it illegal for citizens to possess gold. We shall take a closer look at that dismal period in a later section, but for now it is important to recall the greatness of our monetary system as it once was. Elgin Grosclose explains, "The principle of free coinage has proved its practical worth as a deterrent to debasement and depreciation. Where coinage is on private account, there is no profit to the state in tampering with the standard, and there is no opportunity for such practice by the individual. The circulation of coins of similar appearance and denomination, but of uncertain standard, the arbitrary and unpredictable modifications in the standard by autocratic government, the temptations to profit which were constantly dangled before despotic rulers, these were evils which had perplexed and harassed society and hindered the natural growth of economy since the days when coined money first appeared. By a stroke, they were swept away. At the same time, the institution of free coinage, by giving stability and character to one of the chief instruments of organized economy, made possible a more vigorous and healthy commercial life, and gave prestige and increased substance to the government adopting it." Sound money and economic prosperity. This was indeed an auspicious beginning for the new nation, and the result was immediately observable in an upsurge in prosperity. The December 16, 1789 edition of the Pennsylvania Gazette declared, "Since the federal Constitution has removed all danger of our having a paper tender, our trade has advanced 50%. But that was just the beginning. Historian Douglas North says that the years 1793 to 1808 were years of unparalleled prosperity. Lewis Hacker describes the period as one of unexampled business expansion, one of the greatest, in fact, the United States has had. The exports of the country mounted from 19 millions in 1791 to 93 millions in 1801. Furthermore, the federal deficit, which amounted to 28% of expenditures in 1792, dropped to 21% in 1795. By 1802, the deficit had disappeared altogether and had been replaced by a surplus that was almost as large as the government's total spending. George Washington watched this economic miracle with great satisfaction, and in correspondence to his friend Lafayette, the French statesman and former general in the Continental Army, Washington commented, "Our country, my dear sir, is fast progressing in its political importance and social happiness." In a letter to Catherine Macaulay Graham, he said, "The United States enjoys a sense of prosperity and tranquility under the new government that could hardly have been hoped for." And in a letter to the American poet and diplomat David Humphreys, Washington exclaimed, "Our public credit stands on that high ground which 3 years ago it would have been considered as a species of madness to have foretold." On the specific subject of paper money without backing by gold or silver, Washington wrote, "We may one day become a great commercial and flourishing nation, but if in the pursuit of the means we should unfortunately stumble again on unfunded paper money or any similar species of fraud, we shall assuredly give a fatal stab to our national credit in its infancy." This, then, was the monetary blueprint laid down by the men who drafted our Constitution. In retrospect, About the only flaw one can find was the attempt to set a fixed ratio between the value of gold and silver. Rather than placing a dollar value on a gold coin, the mint should have imprinted the gold value in terms of weight and fineness. The free market then would have assigned it an exchange value in terms of goods and services, and that automatically would have determined its correct monetary value as a ratio to the silver dollars which were bidding for the purpose of the same items. It was inevitable, therefore, that soon after the $10 eagle was created, the value of gold over silver began to climb higher than the prescribed ratio of 15 to 1, and the eagles ceased to circulate.
So you see that our founding fathers, George Washington, was warning us. Why didn't they ever teach us that in school? Why wasn't our Constitution ever just drilled into our heads? Oh yeah, because the people that were teaching us, the people that created the education system, are the people benefiting from the system that you're operating within. It was all a lie. Everything they told us was a lie. Our founding fathers despised the thought of giving any government the ability to print money because it leads to tyranny every single time. It leads to a very small group of people who are able to print and devalue the wealth of your entire nation. And until we take that control back from these people, they're going to continue to do it. So are you going to encourage your children to put money in their 401k, go to school, get a good job, get into $100,000 worth of debt so they can get a degree that hangs in the wall and isn't worth the toilet paper that they printed it on? I don't know. I don't know what people are going to do. I can't tell you. Take a look at this. Alessandro, you guys seen Alessandro over on the channel as well. He goes by @Alex OTTABTC over on X. Swing over there and give him a follow. He says BlackRock, a whole group of investors are now thinking about Bitcoin for the first time because of the spot ETFs. Welcome to the second era of Bitcoin, and we warmly welcome the new class of Bitcoin investors. It's pretty bold words, folks. The entire world is waking up and realizing what Bitcoin is. And you see, they call it predictive programming, where the government and the fake news are trying to kind of like ease you into something. You can see them doing it here with Bitcoin, which is kind of bizarre. Like, I don't know if it's like them just trying to hold on to the last little bit of power they have or credibility that they do have, or I don't know. Maybe they figure if they're too against it, it'll make you guys want to be more for it. But I mean, even the news is telling you where this is headed.
Goes back to investor interest, that investors have been saying for years that we want an ETF that is providing exposure to Bitcoin. They liked the asset, but they wanted a better vehicle to get exposure to it. And just like it's incredibly easy to get exposure to 500 stocks in the S&P 500 through IVV, or to get bond exposure through AG, people want that type of easy vehicle for Bitcoin. So this is a huge step forward for investors getting that easy access. But also a lot of investors for the first time can now consider Bitcoin. It just wasn't available to a lot of investors who could only buy things that are traded on exchanges like ETFs. And so now you see a whole group of investors who are thinking about this asset for the first time.
You're also seeing 70 different mutual funds saying, you know what? I would like to switch to an ETF, because an ETF is like a mutual fund, only it trades like a stock. You can move it as many times as you want during the day. So give me.
Now, I don't know if you guys saw, I'm trying to scroll through my Twitter right now and find it. Do you guys see that video of Gary Gensler? Where he's talking about banks and what the SEC does. Let me see if I can pull that up here. It's so worth a follow. It's so worth a watch. I wish I actually had it on deck right now. Maybe I got another video I can throw up here while I keep looking for it, so I don't have to keep talking and doing two things. Check out, here's one from Financial Physics. He goes, I'm guessing this is the number the rent seekers can get from subsidized illegals. You know, eventually Americans have to hold the person in front of you responsible for enforcing rent. So check this out, folks. See what's happening to rent all around the country? Why? Because your government's willing to pay top dollar to put migrants in that rental place.
My rent just went from $1,360 to $3,900 a month. Also, I'm sick. Happy spring equinox.
Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Now, I need to figure out, I think I found it. I did find it. Okay, let me throw this one at you, right? You tell me that anybody, any logical market actor, like any grown adult, watches this type of video and is like, yeah, man. Like, I am so confident that these unelected government bureaucrat hacks are in control of that money system. Like I just can't wait. I'm so confident. I feel so assured after watching this video. Like I can't wait to save in US dollars. I know that's what's going through your head, but maybe I'm wrong. You tell me.
What does the $1 bill have to do with the US Treasury markets? And what do either have to do with the Securities and Exchange Commission? Well, you see, the federal government borrows from the public in two ways. One, it prints and issues that cash. In fact, look at what's on the back of the $10 bill. It's the US Treasury Department. Further, it issues Treasury securities. If you pull a $1 bill out of your pocket, what do you see on the reverse? The Great Seal of the United States, the eagle on the right and the pyramid on the left. Well, here at the Securities and Exchange Commission, we are coming up on our 90th birthday. The design on the reverse of the current US dollar, though, is more of a spring chicken. It's 1 year younger, established in 1935. Franklin Roosevelt had a hand in designing both this design on the back of the US dollar and the SEC. Further, the two are related. Our job at the SEC is to oversee the capital markets. The capital markets play an integral role in preserving the dollar as the dominant world currency, and that dominance benefits all of us. It means lower costs for borrowing, not only for the US Treasury, but also for everyone else borrowing in dollars. And to preserve that dominance, the capital markets must have a safe, liquid, and reliable asset in which to invest. That's where the $27 trillion Treasury markets come in. They're the base of the pyramid of our capital markets. And even the base of a pyramid can get shaky at times. We've experienced such jitters in the Treasury markets, not once, not twice, many times from the 1980s all the way through when COVID broke out.
It's like a pyramid,
and when the base of the pyramid shakes, that's not good for the capital markets, for the dollar, or for you. That's why we recently finalized a number of rules regarding the US Treasury market. And one of those relates to the market plumbing itself through something called central clearing. Such plumbing helps ensure that cash and the securities change hands in an orderly way. Clearinghouses, which lower risk by standing in the middle of the markets. They're the buyer to every seller, the seller to every buyer. Given changes in the markets in recent decades, from electronification to high-frequency trading, when it comes to the US Treasury markets, only a small part of the plumbing at the base of the pyramid is being used. I know the ancients didn't have modern plumbing, but we don't want to live like the ancients.
They did have modern plumbing.
Our rules will bring more of the US Treasury markets into this plumbing. That makes the base of the pyramid more
Romans
efficient,
had some of the best plumbing systems in all of history.
In other words, more sturdy and less messy. That strengthens not only the US Treasury market, but the dollar in your pocket.
Dude, it's so funny when people tell you like Bitcoin's a scam. Yeah, scam, all right. That looks like a scam to me, folks. I don't know about you guys. But PDX Leroy is asking how much Bitcoin is on exchange. And this is the thing you can't do in traditional markets, right? Like how much BlackRock is in, or how many Apple shares is on the stock exchange today, or in dark pools, or in shadow banks. I don't freaking know. I don't know how you figure that out. But all I know is we can come over here and we can take a look at the amount of Bitcoin inflows and outflows on exchanges over the last 30 days. On-chain flows. Let's see, we can take a look at a whole bunch of different shit on here. On-chain flows, it looks like, let's see here. It looks like 4.25K Bitcoin. Looks like it left exchanges. Let's see if we can go for over like a long period of time. I know there's some charts here. I know I can figure out how to find it. Give me 2 seconds and I'll be able to find exactly how much Bitcoin has been leaving exchanges versus how much Bitcoin is actually on exchanges. Let's see here. Outflow volume. Let me Google it. Let me throw a few more videos at you. I'll find that one here in a second. First, I want to jump over here and take a look at this right here. Central banks, banking cartels, and Federal Reserves are destroying the livelihood of every American. We must end the Federal Reserve and kick central banks out of America. People like James O'Keefe and Godfrey Bloom are rare breeds to be brave enough to raise this awareness. This is huge, folks. I don't know if you've seen what James O'Keefe did in his investigation into the Fed yesterday, but oh my Lord, they corrupt as all hell.
It is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They're broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal, and it's been going on for too long. To add to that problem, you have moral hazard, a very significant moral hazard from the political sphere. And most of the problem starts in politics and central banks, which are part of the same political system. We have counterfeiting, sometimes called quantitative easing, but counterfeiting by any other name. The artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time. Central banks repress the amount of interest that rates are, so we don't have the real cost of money. And yet we blame the real retail banks for manipulating LIBOR. The sheer effrontery of this is quite astonishing. It's central banks that manipulate interest rates, Commissioner. And plus, underneath all this, we talk loosely, in a rather cavalier fashion, do we not, about deposit guarantees. So when banks go broke through their own incompetence and chicanery, the taxpayer picks up the tab. It's theft from the taxpayer. And until we start sending bankers, and I include central bankers and politicians, to prison for this outrage, it will continue.
Amen, brother. Well, maybe. I wonder what our founding fathers thought the penalty for devaluing currency would be. What, if you guys had to take a guess, what do you think our founding fathers would do to somebody if they were devaluing the wealth of your nation? Let's take a look. That's not the one I want. Here it is. When our founding fathers gave the U.S. government the ability to mint gold coins, anyone found guilty of devaluing the currency would be punished by death. Can we make this part of Agenda 47? Or maybe we just adopt Bitcoin instead and we don't give them the opportunity to devalue your wealth. You guys tell me.
In other words, the gold coins would be equal in value to 10 silver coins. 10 silver coins, each of 371.25 grains of fine silver, would contain a total of 3,712.5 grains. The content of the eagle, therefore, was 1/15 that amount, or 247.5 grains of fine gold. Contrary to popular misconception, Congress did not create a gold dollar. It didn't do that until 57 years later in the Coinage Act of 1849. In fact, it reaffirmed that the money of account of the United States shall be expressed in dollars or units, and again defined those units as coins containing 371.25 grains of pure silver. What Congress did do was authorize the minting of a gold coin and arbitrarily fix the value of the gold in that coin at 15 times the value of the dollar. And it also stated that all silver and gold coins produced in the federal mint were to be legal tender in accordance with their value based on weight and purity relative to the standard of the silver dollar. Oh yes, another thing. It set the death penalty for anyone who debases the nation's coinage, a law which, if enforced today, would wipe out the House of Representatives, the Senate, the managerial level of the Treasury Department, and the presidency as well.
You think anybody that's running for office right now has the cojones, the stones, the fortitude to send us into the worst economic collapse in the history of our in the history of our country? One that'll probably take us 10 years to dig out of. So no matter how great their presidency is or what they do, it'll be remembered as the Great Depression. Think so? Or you think they're going to print money like they always do? Now, if you heard the James O'Keefe story about the Federal Reserve yesterday, you're not paying attention. Now, PDX Leroy was asking how much Bitcoin is left on exchanges. So if you go over to CoinGlass, sorry, I was over on Into the Block. There's a lot more data over on Into the Block, but if you go over to CoinGlass, they got a lot of great information as well. So check this out. This is the amount of Bitcoin on every centralized exchange. Why do you think the United States government is trying so hard to take down Binance? Oh, because they control the most amount of Bitcoin. It's pretty hard to manipulate a market when your adversaries in other countries control a majority of the wealth. Binance, 538,000. Bitfinex, 371,000. Oh, Coinbase only has 294,000. Really? Coinbase only has 294,000? Weird. Oh, Coinbase Pro. How about Coin One? Only has 999. So check this out. Total, you guys, that was 1.9 million. Like a couple of weeks ago. There's only 1 point out of in all across the world. There are only 1.74 million Bitcoin for sale. The Saudi prince wants 1 million, rumor has it. So what do you think when nation state starts buying that, how quick that's going to dissipate? And you can see the price, which is kind of weird because if you go back over here and you take a look at how many Bitcoin were on exchange here, like 1.8 million, 1.84 million, and we're at 51,000. We go back over here and we were at, what was the price point there? 40,000. Oops, sorry, I need to get this up more. 40,000. We had 1.9 million on exchange. I don't think it's going to be very long, folks, at all. I mean, we're at 2.03 million at 28,000. We've taken, so like 20% of the supply off exchanges. We've taken almost 2.5 million coins off. We've taken 1/8 of the Bitcoin off exchange and price went from 20,000 to 74,000. You guys tell me, folks. How many millionaires do you think there are out there? How many rappers and celebrities that want to own more than one Bitcoin? I mean, you just can't imagine that every single rapper in the industry, every single celebrity isn't trying to own at least one Bitcoin. I mean, you'd be out of your mind to think these people have millions. And Grant Cardone goes, well, how many houses can you buy? How many Lambos? How many cars? How many this? I don't know. You can't really buy that many, can you? But Bitcoin, it's the only thing that these people can never buy enough of. That no matter how hard they want or how hard they work, they can never get a hold of any. Like they're always going to want more. There's going to be a perpetual demand for this asset for all of eternity. And no matter what the government does, they can't stop you. No, I'm not, D's nuts. No, I'm not. Nah. My free speech thinking doesn't fit the brand, so is what it is. Check this out. Did you guys see the James O'Keefe stuff yesterday? If you didn't, let's get into this, man. And we'll get into a few more of these articles. So this is James O'Keefe. I'm just going to play a few minutes of it. This is not James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe, did James O'Keefe expose this one? Yeah, he did. This is O'Keefe Media Group. Yeah, so O'Keefe had his people, right? His citizen journalists that he arms with these undercover cameras, going and meeting with people that work at the Federal Reserve. Take a look at what these people are talking about.
On principal economies. Right now, I'm preparing for something. I'm going to do a talk to the Fed board.
Meet Harel Hizmo. He's a principal economist working inside the Federal Reserve.
So you write speeches for Powell?
Yeah, like for certain paragraphs. I'm just really worried that I'm saying stuff like stuff that's classified.
Do you deal with classified stuff?
It's all classified, right?
Quote, it's all classified.
It's all classified. Trump is a crazy person. It's very clear. I mean, he's a dumb guy.
Does he hate Trump? And like, is the feeling neutral?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah.
And Trump was president. He wanted to stimulate the economy.
Right.
But he wouldn't do it. And he started raising interest rates, doing the opposite that Trump wanted. So, I mean, so the feeling is this, that like, we don't want Trump to be in government.
Right.
Harel Hizmo, principal economist with the Federal Reserve, says Jerome Powell wants to go down in history as someone who, quote, held the line against Donald Trump, unquote.
He's doing it for the legacy. He wants to be remembered in history as somebody who held the line against like Trump and like somebody who like helped the economy.
So he wants to preserve his legacy as someone,
even though he's Republican on paper, Democrats still love him.
Yeah, because he's responsive. Like under Powell, the Fed has changed to think about equity issues, like racial issues, think about wealth inequality as part of the mandate, as part of the things we're following. Think about climate change.
Aurel Hismo says, quote, people think conservatives are dumb, and that the, quote, Federal Reserve would discriminate against those conservatives depending on how out there they are.
People think they're dumb.
Would they be discriminated against?
I mean, it depends on how out there they are. He's doing it for the legacy. As somebody who held the line against like Trump.
In today's unpredictable world, it's all about being prepared for who knows what they have in store for the next pandemic. Our friends and supporters at the Wellness Council.
Let that sink in, folks. The Federal Reserve trying to interfere with the election and trying to be known as the man who held the line against President Donald Trump. How's that one working out for you, Jerome Powell? I don't know. Maybe Congress would investigate if Congress actually did their job, but, that's probably not going to happen, is it? Probably not. But lo and behold, the SEC's after Uniswap. Mr. K threw this one my way just before we went live today. Wow, if that one rhymed, that was really good. Mr. K threw this one my way. I can't even say it again if I wanted to. So check this out. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, a.k.a. the most corrupt government organization in all the history of America, has officially filed a lawsuit against the decentralized cryptocurrency exchange Uniswap. Indeed, the agency issued a Wells notice to the company on Wednesday to notify the business of the impending legal action planned against it. In a response to the notice, Uniswap founder Hayden Adams said he was not surprised, just disappointed in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter. Moreover, Adams said that he was ready to fight while expressing his confidence in the legality of the DeFi platform, which has long been on the SEC's radar. And now this isn't the first time that the SEC has gone after Uniswap or another cryptocurrency exchange, to be honest. It blows my mind that these people, they're the most uncredible government organization in the history of the world. Not even a single member of Congress respects this man. How about we just talk about what Byron Donalds thinks of Gary Gensler really quick? And you tell me if this is how do you, as the SEC, bring charges against somebody else when you are a criminal? Dude, you tried to interfere with the 2020 election. You did. It's a fact. We have the evidence.
Hey, real quick, last question. I think it might have came up. You were Hillary Clinton's CFO in the campaign, right?
It's part of my history.
Were you? Yes or no?
In 2016.
Did you facilitate the payment for the Steele dossier since you were CFO of the Hillary Clinton campaign?
Sir.
Yes or no?
Sir.
Yes or no?
Sir.
That was not.
You're under oath, Chairman Gensler. Yes or no?
I know. I was not something I was aware of.
I yield back the rest of my time. Thank you, Chairman.
It's not something I was aware of. You facilitated the payments for the Steele dossier, but it's not something you're aware of. And Congress just goes, oh, yeah, okay. Well, let's look at the next thing around here. Right? Dude, put this man in prison. What is he doing regulating anything? The dude should be regulated behind bars, in handcuffs for the crimes that he's committed against our country. And this dickwad's gonna dictate where you can put your money, and he's gonna extort more money out of an American company who busted their ass to build something to bring value to a market that wanted it. Whether you believe in Uniswap or think they sell shitcoins, it's irrelevant. They built a business. They followed the rules and regulations that we had. They reached out to the SEC. They tried to get guidance and clearance and exactly what they needed to do, and they were giving absolutely nothing but a runaround.
The biggest crypto failure in history is probably FTX at $9 billion. Were you the chairman of the SEC when FTX collapsed?
Yes.
And how many times did you meet with FTX prior to their collapse?
I think my public record shows 2.
You met it with FTX at least twice. And arguably, the second biggest crypto failure in history was Terra Luna. Who was the chairman of the SEC when Terra Luna collapsed, sir?
We had brought...
You were, sir, reclaiming my time. You were. Does it concern you that your approach to the digital asset industry is actually driving this industry out of the United States?
We're trying to drive it to compliance, and if they're not complying with the laws...
You say the crypto market is rife with non-compliance. However, existing SEC rules make no sense for blockchain-based companies, and following them would actually kill these businesses. Your regulatory style lacks flexibility and nuance, and as a result, you've been an incompetent cop on the beat, doing nothing to protect everyday Americans.
So that's what Congress thinks of Gary Gensler. So we can jump back to this article just so now we can get an idea of the person that's filing these lawsuits. So Watcher Guru says, just in, SEC files a lawsuit against Uniswap, issuing a Wells notice to the company. So the digital asset market has continued its rather continuous relationship with the SEC in 2024. Although the agency did approve spot Bitcoin ETFs into the new year, it did so willingly. Moreover, it has sought legal action to continue the assert regulatory clarity throughout the enforcement. Now, the SEC has filed a lawsuit against the decentralized cryptocurrency exchange Uniswap. Specifically, the company's founder had verified the legal action through a post confirming the reception of the Wells notice. The process is typically issued to provide a chance for companies that seek to rebut accusations. However, this occurrence is likely a formality. Adam took to X to share his perspective while addressing the consistent actions taken by the SEC. Specifically, he noted that the agency had little interest in working to create a clear, informed rules, and instead goes after exchange platforms that operate in good faith like Uniswap or Coinbase, all while leading bad actors like FTX slip by. Exactly. There we go. Finally, somebody speaking some truth. And Hayden.eth tweeted out, he said, today, Uniswap Labs received a Wells notice from the SEC. I'm not surprised, just annoyed, disappointed, and ready to fight. Good, let's go. I am confident that the products we offer are legal and that our work is on the right side of history. But it's been clear for a while that rather than work with us, let's see what he said here. So I have to open it up. That rather than working to create clear, informed rules, the SEC decides to focus on attacking longtime good actors like Uniswap and Coinbase while letting bad actors like FTX slip by. When I first set out to build Uniswap, the goal wasn't to reimagine finance. It was an experiment in radically decentralized, fully automated on-chain markets. I didn't know if it would work or if anyone would use it. Fast forward to today. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. Fast forward to today, Uniswap protocol has processed over 2 trillion in volume. 2 trillion, that's a lot of money. Many thousands of teams and developers have forked our code or built on top of it. We built entirely new financial infrastructure that is transparent, fair, secure, and accessible, empowering an entire industry. The team at Uniswap did all of this in the US from our office in New York City. People often ask me why we stay in the US, and my answer is simple. I believe that the blockchain is incredibly powerful technology, like the internet. It's here to stay. So someone needs to figure it out, and it might as well be us. And when you build technology that improves people's lives, you don't need to hide. The SEC's mission is protecting investors, maintaining fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and facilitating capital formation. This is a noble mission. I would argue Uniswap does a far better job of this today than the SEC. Yes, I'm frustrated that the SEC seems to be more concerned with protecting opaque systems than protecting consumers, and that we'll have to fight a U.S. government agency to protect our company and our industry. The fight will take years, may go all the way to the Supreme Court, and the future of financial technology and our industry hangs in the balance. If we stand together, we can win. I think freedom is worth fighting for. I think DeFi is worth fighting for. And of course, we won't stop sharing. Stay tuned. Amen. Amen. Whether you believe what they do or their shit coins they sell or the crap coins, it's a free market, right? Anybody can list a coin. Well, no, it's not actually. And that's where you get into the gray zone, right? So Uniswap claims they're decentralized. But the second they had to get rid of Tornado Cash, what happened? Oh, that token was immediately removed from the user interface. So Uniswap claims that anybody can trade on their DEX, right? And you can actually get into the back of their DEX and you can still trade any tokens you want, even if they're unlisted from Uniswap. But the user front end, that website, is owned by the Uniswap team. So that's not so decentralized. Decentralized is where you'd have to take a vote. And the fact that a majority of the coins the Uniswap tokens out there, which give you voting power in the network, are probably controlled by the team or devs or big name investors that are partners with them, leads you to believe only one option, right? It is centralized, very centralized. That's why the SEC is serving them, and there's a single point of failure. It's why I say any one of these blockchains that ever becomes a real threat, they're just going to become a target of the SEC. So unless we take that power back and we all come together and we say, hey, you know what? Whether I believe in shitcoins or not, it doesn't matter. What I believe in is a free market. And I definitely don't believe in some corrupt government bureaucrat hack going after an American citizen who's created a business that a free market has gave value to. Like, people continue to use this day in and day out. It allows me to trade any assets anywhere, anytime, no matter what state I'm in, no matter who or where I'm at. I love Uniswap. Throw in a VPN and nobody's stopping you from using it. It's awesome, right? Yeah, so when we talk about crypto wallets, right? You have, I mean, it's still way over my head, but I'm going down the air-gapped rabbit hole. So if you go over to CoinKite's website, you can find some of their wallets. I got the MK4, and they just had the new one, which I think is the Q wallet. And they're really cool. So they're air-gapped wallets. So basically you get like a little device. Looks like a little calculator, one of them. The other one looks like a BlackBerry. And this device has a slot for a memory card on it. So when you activate it, you create your keys, which are your private keys. Now, your private keys need to be on your device. So after you basically download in a Bitcoin wallet, you use your private keys to gain access to it, and those private keys get stored on your device. Most of them in an encrypted way on an encrypted chip that's really hard for anybody to hack into. But if a hacker gets into your computer and you have your Bitcoin wallet on your computer, they could there's ways for them to hack into that chip and get your private keys and unlock your wallet. So after your wallet's basically downloaded on the device, anytime you go to sign into it, you just need your username and password. So once it's already on your device, you create a username and password, and as long as it stays on that device, you only need to type in your username or password to access your Bitcoin. Now, if your phone breaks or whatever device breaks that you have your Bitcoin on, in order to restore that wallet, you need those 12 or 24 words, and most people are using the 24 words now. So CoinKite has created this way for you to have a Bitcoin wallet, and it comes on its separate device that's never connected to the internet. So it's a little bit complicated for like the average person who just got into Bitcoin to understand. I'm having a hard time understanding it. But basically, so you create a transaction on your desktop. You download this application, or you're running on your own node or whatever, and you create a transaction on your actual desktop, right? And then you save the started transaction onto a memory card. You take the memory card out of your computer, you put the memory card into your device, right? You confirm that transaction because you need your keys to sign that transaction. So after your keys are verified, you sign that transaction and it saves it back into a file. And then you unplug the memory card and you put it back into your computer and you finish processing that transaction. All while your Bitcoin are on this device, and that device never touches the internet. It's over my head. I'm hoping to have Ben from BTC Sessions on here to explain it and break it down. So let me pull up his YouTube channel. This guy is like, I don't even know where he came from. In my personal opinion, he's an absolute legend, a guru. I'd call him what you want to call him, but Ben from BTC Sessions, like this guy knows his shit, like to the point where I'm like, holy cow. And I'm getting the cold card, as they call it. So if you swing over here to YouTube and you look for BTC Sessions, this is Ben. So cold card, hardware wallet, full tutorial. This is the one I just got. This is the one that I'm getting, right? So I ordered this one, and then I seen like 2 days later, I was looking to get the chargers for it, because you don't even charge this with a USB cord, right? So it's weird. It has like this little plug that comes into the back of it. And it's like a magnetic charger cord, but that cord is for charging only. So even if you like accidentally plugged it into your computer or plugged it into a device, it can't send data through it. So it's really cool. So you now have this device that never touches the internet, is literally virtually impossible to hack. And the idea with you have a cold wallet, right? So a majority of my crypto, like my big amounts, will be set up on two separate wallets, a couple Bitcoin on one, couple Bitcoin on another. And then I'll have a third wallet, which is the wallet I use to interact with, right? I'll keep maybe like $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 worth of Bitcoin on it. That way, if I'm lose it or something happens, I'm not out or my phone gets hacked or whatever the case is, I'm not worried about losing all of my Bitcoin. It's just going to be the Bitcoin that I use in like the Lightning Network and I use to buy stuff on a day-to-day basis. But the idea with these cold cards, right, is once you have that address, you can just keep sending Bitcoin to it. You don't need to do the memory card, anything. You just do that the one time to get it set up. And once your wallet's set up, you use it like a savings account, a 401k, a bank account that you're never going to touch unless you absolutely have to. Then if you have to, you create the transaction, you send however much Bitcoin you need to the wallet you interact with on a daily basis, and you keep your Bitcoin there. These cold cards are designed just to be like a Fort Knox for your Bitcoin. Like nobody can get in there. What's cool about them is they actually have like fake outs. So say somebody comes into your house, like, give me all your Bitcoin, like puts a gun to your head. You're like, oh, okay. You type, because you can have more than one wallet on the device. So when it prompts you to open up and key in your code, your key code, you can have two different key codes. One can open up like basically a fake wallet or a wallet that only has a small portion of Bitcoin on it. So like, I mean, it would be impossible for them to know that that's which one's the real one, or that you even have, like nothing indicates that like when you go to open that up and you go to sign that transaction and send the Bitcoin out of there, nothing indicates that you have more than one wallet on that device, which is really freaking badass. Absolutely badass. So I ordered both of them. And what's weird is I kind of don't like about CoinKite is I paid like $40 for 2 days shipping. And what that means is it'll ship 2 days after they process your order. So it could take them 3, could take them 7. It's been over 7 days and I don't even have tracking for my order yet. So kind of crappy. I thought I was paying a lot of money to have something shipped to me immediately. And it's like, oh yeah, hey, we'll 2 days ship it after it takes us a week or 10 days or 2 weeks to get your product. Kind of weird. The Q card one I had to pre-order. So that one I understand. That one I just paid for regular shipping and said, screw it. I'll just, whenever they get it to me, they get it to me. But I'll be doing full tutorials, but I probably won't even do them nearly as good as Ben does them. And hopefully after I get these all set up, I can kind of have Ben come over here and fill in the blanks on areas or things that I don't understand. But some of his tutorials, this one over here on the Q card is 2 hours long. I'm pretty sure he went through every single feature that wallet has to offer and what you can do with them and how you can set up multiple payment channels and Lightning networks. I mean, he's a genius, man. So anything you guys want to learn about Bitcoin, that guy's your guy. Let's jump over to this next article here. What do we got left? How much time we got left? We got about 7 minutes left. We started a little bit early. Let's talk about rate cuts. Rate cuts. We didn't think rate cuts were coming. We actually knew they weren't coming. Well, actually, first, let's jump over to this article first. I want to talk about Bitcoin miner manufacturer Auradine secures $80 million in funding. Now, I believe they make the fastest Bitcoin miners, if I'm not mistaken. Around 10 days ahead of the highly anticipated halving, California-based web infrastructure startup known as its Bitcoin miners, Auradine, am I saying that right? Auradine, I think, has successfully secured $80 million in a Series B funding round. Thrilled to announce our $80 million Series B funding round, getting customer momentum with $80 million in bookings achieved. Pretty huge, right? This funding, described as a oversubscribed, saw participation from several prominent investors, including Stepstone Group, Top Tier Capital, Pantera, MVP Ventures, Maverick Capital, Celestial Capital, Mayfield Fund, and the Marathon Digital. A $1 billion valuation target, initially aiming for $70 million, or Auradine's successful fundraising was attributed to the heightened investor interest. Co-founder and CEO stated that the Series B round, which started earlier this year, concluded just last week. Notably, this funding is a blend of equity and debt with $60 million in equity and $20 million in debt. I don't even know what that means. Auradine, with a Series A round of $81 million last year, marked its valuation at over $500 million. While he refrained from quoting the updated valuation, he expressed optimism about the company's trajectory, anticipating a future valuation of $1 billion. He stated, "We are very proud of the achievements that our team has made, bringing innovation, energy efficient, and secure products to our customers. The strong order and pipeline reflects the confidence of our customers have within us. With this new funding, we will ramp up production capacities and accelerate investments in our products and our roadmaps. So it sounds pretty cool. They have massive support from some big players. They were established in 2022, introduced its Teraflux Bitcoin miner in November of 2023. These machines have been deployed to over 30 prominent data center scale miners. The company's commitment to design its Bitcoin miners in the United States is hailed as a strategic move for decentralized supply and national security, which is huge, given the concurrent geopolitical landscape. While Bitcoin miners constitute its primary product line, the company is actively developing additional offerings for blockchains and artificial intelligence sectors. Currently, the company boasts a workforce of around 75 individuals, with plans for further expansion, particularly in research and development and supply chain operations. Amen. Amen to that. Deutsche Bank surveys may expect Bitcoin fall to 20,000. Oh man, the central banks can't get enough of it, folks. They cannot. They literally can't. And it's crazy watching our country go down this rabbit hole. It really is. Like, I don't think it's going to take much longer before everybody wakes up and they're like, yeah, I'm done. I can't wrap my head around how you convince Gen Z and another generation of Americans to go put money in their 401k. I don't know how you do it. Has anybody got any ideas? I'm open to options, folks. If you guys are on YouTube, make sure you guys swing over here and join us on Rumble. It's such a better time. Everybody's over here on Rumble. I've completely given up on YouTube, so I don't even know if I'm going to stream out to YouTube for much longer. So hope of rate cuts. Let's talk about this one, right? Hope of rate cuts as inflation persists, comparing narratives. Uncertainty surrounds Fed rate cuts in 2024 as plans change due to persistent inflation, promoting prompting scrutiny from Bitcoin analysts and investors, right? The Federal Reserve plans for interest rate cuts are facing uncertainty amidst stubborn inflation as recent data challenges initial expectations. Bitcoin analysis and investors are closely watching the evolving economic landscape around Fed rate cuts in 2024, pondering the implications for the market. This article analyzes different narratives about the inflation and the anticipated rate cuts, hoping to bring to light what lies ahead in the current complex economic landscape. Now, Fed rate cuts 2024, challenging persistent inflation is the title of this. Recent reports reveal a persistent challenge of the Federal Reserve's anticipated rate cut plan. The U.S. Consumer Price Index, also known as the CPI, surged unexpectedly, climbing to 3.5% in March. I don't know who wasn't expecting that, but I sure as hell was. That's what we were calling for that a long time ago. Unsettling financial markets. We actually started calling for that the day that we got the intel coming in about what was going on over in the Red Sea. And that was probably back in, when was that? Back in January? I think it was back in January. We were warning that inflation was about to skyrocket because the shipping costs were going through the roof at a faster rate than they were during COVID. So I think we're headed back towards 9% inflation. I don't know about you guys. Now, this unexpected rise, as highlighted by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, was preliminarily driven by the increase in housing and fuel costs, prompting concerns about prolonged high interest rates. Now, rates and inflation, if we take a look over here at this chart that they got up here on the screen. So, based off this chart, it says the Federal Reserve has raised its policy interest rates by 5.25% points since March 2022. It is now substantially above all main U.S. inflation measures, most notably versus the PCE index used by the Fed to set its inflation target. Now, I know over in Europe, they had something big going on today. Note CPI, Consumer Price Index, PEC equals Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, core. Core equals excluding food and energy. So yeah, you know that you spend most of your money on food and energy, but we're going to exclude those from the Consumer Price Index. Fed funds equals Fed policy rate, source, Federal Reserve fund rates and targets, Bureau of Labor Statistics, CPI, Bureau of Economic Analysis, PCE, and inflation rates are annual. Jeez, oh Pete's, right? Cheese and rice, folks. Cheese and rice. So Evan Brown, who served as a profile manager and oversees multi-asset strategies at the UBS Asset Management, expressed, "We're having a number of clients ask us, why is the Fed going to cut rates at all? That's really picked up over the last month or so." Brown emphasized Jerome Powell's consistency in prioritizing inflation over growth and a strong labor market when considering rate cuts. As long as Powell maintains this stance, Brown suggests that rate cuts should still be anticipated. Now, John Day, of course, right? Actually, let me grab my drink of water. John Day, who serves as a profile manager at Newton Investment Management, stated, "The vast majority of people I speak to don't think inflation will come back to 2% sustainably. We think central banks are being dovish." So now you peasants have to get used to the government stealing 3% of your wealth every year. 3% of your wealth. Like, imagine if you went shopping. This is the best analogy I can come up with. Imagine you went shopping, and every day you went shopping, say you went shopping every Monday. You went home, you went shopping before work, and you came home after work, and your roommate ate 2% of everything that you bought that day, or 3% of everything in the fridge. They went in there, they opened up your bacon. They're like, "Yeah, take 3 strips out of there, a couple eggs out of your carton of eggs," poured themselves a nice glass of milk, went in there, stole a couple of your oranges and apples, and just feasted. Every time that you went to work, and you worked your ass off, and you saved your money, and you went and used the money that you've gained by all the work that you put out into the world, all the energy that you produced, you were rewarded with these paper dollars, and you chose to spend those on food for yourself and your family. And your roommate comes in there and he eats a percentage of that food every time you go shopping. How long would you have that roommate for? But yet the Federal Reserve has been doing it. This elite group, right, has convinced our entire nation that it's in your best interest for corporations like BlackRock to buy up all the single family homes, for NGOs to get massive amounts of your money so that they can fund an invasion into your country, so that they can take your jobs, the future from your children, your savings account, and most likely your land when you can't afford to pay your bills and you get behind in your taxes. Yep. Is that Friendly one says, "What should I do with my money besides invest in 401k? I wouldn't. Friendly, I would drain it all out of my 401k. Think about this. Everything that you put in your 401k, what did that bring you in the last year? How much money did your 401k make you? Maybe 10? I would say best case 15%. And that's if you were in some high risk assets. Or maybe you got lucky and you just broke even. So if you just broke even, you lost 10% because everything around you got 10% more expensive. You know, the haircut that used to cost you $10. I think what is it saying? Like the haircut that used to cost you $5 that you thought was expensive when you paid $10 and is even more expensive when is now $15 and you have no hair or something like that. I forget the equation on that or the saying on that. Let me look it up. But where I'm going with that is you take your money out of your 401k and you pay a 25% penalty, maybe a 30% penalty at tops. And I have a really good example of this. This is one of my friends was talking about how does he get exposure to Bitcoin ETF? And I said, well, drain your 401k, cash it all out. Why wouldn't you? And he goes, oh man, I'm going to pay, fines and fees. He's like, I got part of it in a Roth and part of it in a regular. It's like, okay, so the Roth you've already paid taxes on, except for the gains. And if you haven't made many gains in the last year, you're pretty much skating even on that. And then you're going to pay your 15% penalty on your regular 401k and the taxes on it. So I said, just to say you pay 25%. He had $67,000, give or take, in his 401k. Paying that 25% fee would have put him down to about 50. And that was back in when Bitcoin was 20,000. So he could have paid a 25% fine, lost whatever $17,000 or $15,000 or whatever he would have lost in paying the fines and the fees. He would have put it into Bitcoin, which since has gone up like 265%. Bitcoin is an asset that goes up on average 195% every year since inception. If you hold it for a 4-year period, those are pretty much your averages over a 4-year period. So and that's every year, 195%. So if you put 10,000, let's just say it goes to 48%, right? Like let's say we way overestimate, the market slows down because the market cap's getting bigger. And for some reason it goes to a 48%. 10,000 the first year turns into like, what is it? Like 16, or no, it turns into 14.9. Then the second year it's 21. And then the third year it's 30, 31 or something like that. And it ends up being like 41 or 44,000. So if you put 10,000 into Bitcoin today, 4 years from now at a 48% per year increase, you're looking at about 44,000. I bet your 401k is more than $10,000 in it, and it's probably had more than $10,000 in it for the last 10 years, and it's probably worth 15,000 now, which is nothing. Like you haven't even kept up with the rate of inflation. So you drain your 401k right now, you put it into an asset that's going to go up at the very least of 48% per year, but more likely probably 195%. And what you're watching is a paradigm shift in our country of everybody waking up and going, yeah, why would I take my money and give it to some kid that just graduated college and his dad worked at Goldman Sachs, or his dad knows Jerome Powell, so he got a job at this position. And now this kid who has been taught by the wokest universities in the world on basically how to take your money and then charge you a fee to invest your money because you're paying these people. You're assuming that they do this for a living and they're much smarter than you are, which isn't true. And they have the ability to take the wealth that you generate and you're going to give it to them and let them investment and let them manage your money because you don't want to take responsibility for it. And you think that they're going to do a better job. And you're hoping and you're praying that these people bring you back about 10 to 15% per year. Like that would be exceptionally well. Or you can take that yourself and you can buy Bitcoin and you can self-custody an asset, which you don't have to do anything. You don't have to learn anything outside of how to self-custody that asset. You take all of this control back. You know, I did a meme and I said, it was like a long line of migrants marching towards the United States. And I said, migrants in line to get free dollars from your government, and then I said, and I showed a big, giant, green, open field with not a single person in it. And I said, migrants marching towards America to get your Bitcoin, right? When no matter how you play the game, you are going to lose. You only have one option, and that option is to not play. And it doesn't matter what you do inside their game or inside their system, it strengthens it. Whether you're a good market actor, whether you're a bad market actor, where you're shouting at them, whether you're trying to expose the corruption inside the government, all of that revolves around them strengthening you strengthen that environment because you're taking part in it. So until you really fully withdraw and you take that power back from them, So, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you just have to think about those things. And you're watching Gen Z who's going, yeah, why? Like, so listen to this, right? You have to work, right? Because they're debasing your currency, right? You now have to work till you're 70. Like, what person wants to grow up, go to school, get a job, go to school, right? Get $100,000 in debt. Some of them are like $400,000 in debt by the time they graduate from some of these really elite universities. So you're in $400,000 worth of debt, which means that you're immediately forced to take a job. You don't have the luxury to, sit back and chill and try to figure it out and maybe take some time off to start your own business. And you better hope that in that 4 years at Harvard or somewhere, you met somebody that has money and is willing to bankroll some idea or business model that you have. Because if you don't, and you're really not that elite smart like some of these kids are, then you're going to go end up taking a job working for somebody in a corporation that you hate. And like there's banks now that are being forced, like Political Savvy. We interviewed her this last weekend. Oh, you guys haven't seen that interview yet. It'll be coming out this weekend. And she went into work. And she was pulled aside and said, hey, yeah, we can't fire you from this bank that you've worked at for like the last 10 years because of your political views. But we just want to let you know your social media's accounts are being monitored and your DEI, your stance on DEI doesn't align with our corporation or our bank. Friendly says, yeah, I work at a job that I hate as a software developer. Yeah, it sucks. And you do that because you've been, the best analogy, and I probably said you guys are sick of me hearing I say it, but like if you were born in year 900 AD and it was the 400-year period where the Jews were enslaved, and you were born at year 200 and your parents were slaves, right? You were born into slavery. Well, your parents were slaves, their parents were slaves, their parents were slaves, their great-great-grandparents were slaves, right? What would you know? You would know nothing but how to be a good little slave. And that's kind of the analogy that I use for this fiat Ponzi world we've been bred into. Like our parents didn't have the ability. I don't want to say they didn't have the ability, right? But it was a little bit harder to find this information out when you actually like, oh, hey, how does the Federal Reserve work? All right, you got to go to the library. You got to try to figure out, you can't, like there's no, like what book should I read about the Federal Reserve? You're hoping that the librarian at that library is going to point you in the right direction. Because even back then, the internet was still in its infancy stages. So it wasn't easy for them. So I don't necessarily blame them for not figuring it out, because the system was so designed to keep them as a slave that it was hard for them to figure out. But now we have the internet. And I don't think that people like yourself are like, well, I'm fucking struggling. Like, why am I struggling? Why should I have to work? Like, I mean, look at the government, right? Like when our government was first started, Bud Light, any of these, large corporations, it was 20 in, 20 out. It was like you were able to graduate high school when you were 18, take a job working at like Anheuser-Busch, work for 20 years, and retire with a pension at 38. Think about that. You used to be able to go get a job when you turned 18, and if you wanted to work your ass off and work that overtime and put money into your savings account and save and do everything right, you could literally retire in 20 years with a full pension, go buy yourself a little nice beach house in Costa Rica and live off your pension and just retire and be set for the rest of your life and raise your family. Now, I mean, you can't even think about doing that. Same with government jobs. It was 20 in, 20 out, pension, full retirement till you die. And now it's just not the case. You can't even, like, you have to work till you're 90. Weren't you the one, Ryan, who got, I am, yeah, I did. Yeah, man, people make their own decisions, man. It is what it is, I'm a free speech absolutist. I'm never going to censor myself or not say something because I feel like it's going to offend somebody or you might look bad in the future or whatever. It's like, I just speak truth, man. I mean, I'm not the smartest person. I'm not the, fastest or strongest. I just outwork everybody, I just show up, I work harder than everybody, and I speak the truth. If my truth offends you or doesn't fit your brand or whatever, hey, that's your choice. But I'm a free speech absolutist, So, hey, shit happens. But yeah, man, that's the only way you're gonna ever get ahead. So don't let the system fool you. Don't listen to people like Elizabeth Warren and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and these people that tell you Bitcoin bad. Look at the people that are telling you Bitcoin bad. And they're telling you to put your money into a 401k and use the US dollar so that they can continue to loot the treasury. How about no? How about we just stop using their tools and their systems? We take that power back, and it's not something that you can learn overnight. Friendly one. That's the hardest part about Bitcoin is it's super complicated because for the first time you have to like rewire your whole brain into thinking differently. And the question you really need to ask yourself is, what is money? So if you come over to YouTube and you go to my YouTube channel and you go down to my playlist, there is a playlist that says, what is Bitcoin? If you come over here and you click on the actual playlist itself. So these first two are documentaries. So if you can't like sit through a podcast and because your attention span is so depleted from TikTok and what it does to your brain, maybe start with one of these documentaries. They're older documentaries, but you really see what people saw in Bitcoin early on that you wish you would have saw. And all the signs were there. Like these were just the people that were paying attention to what money was and trying to figure out the question of like, what is money? And how do you protect yourself from like the market conditions that we are in right now? Like your government creating horrible fiscal policies, inflating the price of assets to make themselves rich and try to stimulate an economy, which is in a free market, your government should never be stimulating the economy. So those are great documentaries. But if you really want to dive down the rabbit hole, and I'm talking about this, I guarantee I would bet you a lot of money that you don't make it to video 5 before you're draining your entire 401k. Video 1 will hook you. 2 is going to make you fall in love. By 3, 4, and 5, there's literally nothing that you're really not willing to sell to get more Bitcoin, in my personal opinion. So if you could just start here, this playlist will change your entire outlook. I mean, I tell people I have husbands and wives who I'm like, when you guys start watching this, by video 5, you're going to be like, okay, we can pawn our wedding rings. Like, I love you, honey, but like, we need more Bitcoin because our children will be slaves in a system that their founding fathers, fought to conquer. But yet it came back. It's the creature from Jekyll's Island. And when you really realize who did it, it's the Rothschilds. Like, there's a very powerful group of people who have controlled the money printer for far too long. And has it allowed them to create color revolutions, overthrow governments, start wars? Like, think about how many people have been killed. And then you think about like these people have this population agenda and they've all signed on board. And like all these countries all around the world are basically like, okay, whatever we have to do to keep the population of the world below 8 billion, we're going to do. I mean, even if it means genocide and going to wars. And I think a lot of these wars weren't even for land or property or religious purposes. I think that they were going into those places to destroy ancient history so that we didn't really learn about other advanced civilizations that have been on this planet for a lot longer than us. And these people have technology that would blow your mind. And it's weird how, the same people are always finding the best investments and the best technologies to invest in. I don't know. I think there's a lot more to that story. Maybe we'll find it out one day. But I know right now the best thing that you can do for you and your family is to be buying as much Bitcoin and doing everything you can to withdraw from the corrupt system. So we got to wrap it up, folks. I'm going to be over on LFA TV today at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys want to come join us over on LFA TV, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'd love to have you guys over there. We're going to be talking about all things politics. Not sure what the show is going to be called today, but we're going to dive deep into some political corruption. I guarantee you that. And then we'll be back over here at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm probably not going to do the night shows much longer unless we get a guest that books a night interview. It's a little bit too much to have to do in all these shows. And I got that documentary we're starting in a couple weeks. So I'm going to have a lot going on. And hopefully this information helps you guys. God bless you guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. We out. Peace.
Run.